And one of the things I noticed significantly when I came back from Thailand after spending so much time with my dad and after his passing, was that the judgment I had for him and for myself and for everybody else had been turned down a bit. And I've noticed this shift since I've come back and since I've had the time to myself again and in my familiar surroundings. And the shift is I can see more clearly this bundle of thoughts that calls itself John, and all of the many ways that John is trying to protect himself from the world, seeing him as he is, which is vulnerable, at times afraid, uncertain. And also caring, devoted, loving, understanding. And being able to see these things and witness them with some detachment, or a greater degree of detachment, brings with it a huge amount of space. And just consider for a moment, if you're living with feelings you don't like, if you're living in a life that doesn't serve you, you're struggling, what would happen if you started to, even in your own space, if you have a journal or a form of living reflection like this channel is for me, then let's just say that your name is Steve. Just talk about Steve from the third person as a witness, not with judgment or with criticism, but just objectively. And it sounds a bit weird. I've been thinking about this a bit recently. If you say, I am afraid, you become that fear. That fear takes hold inside of you. It becomes part of who you are. Anything that you attach to the words I am becomes the truth that you live in that moment. And the more firmly you attach to those statements, the more that truth persists. Whereas when you start to articulate it with some objective detachment, you can say, John is afraid, Steve is afraid. And there's enough people out there that are going to think you're crazy considering that. But first of all, you don't have to tell them. And second of all, most people in the world, at least in the Western world, are chasing the idea of peace of mind, chasing the idea of happiness, the idea of fulfillment that will arrive at some promised point in the future when all of the things that they could possibly want are in their lives, and all of the things that they don't want have gone. And there is an end to all desires and problems and challenges. And you could say that's crazy, really, because that day never comes. That day comes when you surrender the mind to that power which is behind it, which can observe objectively all of the things going on in one's life. And then rather than living as a mind, afraid, seeking, struggling, surviving, desperate to retain its peace. I mean its peace in terms of its piece of land in the world. Stake its claim to let people know that I exist and I mean something. When you give all of that stuff up, just for a moment, that's where peace of mind is. Peace of mind doesn't exist in the mind. And that's where we kind of go wrong a little bit. So we're looking something in the one place it can't be found. If you can bring the power of observation into your life, you can bring the power of objective witnessing of your own mind, then you're also inviting a sense of spaciousness into your life. You can do that in a million ways. You can do it through meditation, through some other form of spiritual practice. And you can do those things too. They help, of course. But the point is to recognize that if you are having a hard time, and that hard time persists, it's because at some level you're mistaking yourself for the hard time. You have become the hard time. And then the hard time continues, repeats itself over and over again, and it starts to become familiar. And then people start giving you labels and tell you something is wrong with you. And then you're stuck with it. And I'd like to think life is a bit more forgiving than that. We just have to take a step back from ourselves from time to time. And then if we happen to pick the same things up again the next time, we might find that we can see that we're doing it. We might find that we can put it down easier. We might find that we can let things go. There isn't a technique for this. There isn't a pill for it. There isn't a drug for it. And there isn't a therapy for it, as much as we'd like there to be. It's just a case of mistaken identity, which is much easier to resolve than a box full of problems. I'm not saying this from the position of having all of the answers, because I still fall into it from time to time, more than I'd like to acknowledge. And that's why we call it practice. But it's not a practice that leads to a destination. It's a practice returning to something that's always there. We're just paying attention to something which seems to be more important. I think the destination isn't somewhere in the future, it's here. And the practice is to return to being here, even if being here is really painful. And when you do that from time to time, you find yourself able to appreciate simpler forms of pleasure, which I would say isn't a bad thing. And rather than rushing about trying to change every aspect of your life, you just take a moment to see whether or not that's necessary. If you determine that it's necessary from this place, then there's a lot more of you, a much deeper part of you that is able to acknowledge the grounds from which change arises. And there's also part of you that recognizes that it's not being done to fix anything, just doing it simply because you can. And that's the joy of being a creative person, or being a creator in your own life, which all of us are, is that you can create anything you want. Most of us just create challenges and problems and pain, and discomfort for ourselves and for others, arguments, frustrations, irritations. I'm familiar with all of these things, by the way. So I'm not saying this as judgment. And we don't have to. Life is good sometimes. It can be good all the time. I'm working on that one too. Till the next time, take care.